Welcome to the Director's Playbook podcast, where we share practical strategies to grow your business and better serve your community. I'm your host, Paul Lovelace, and today we're pulling back the curtain on funeral planning with Macy Lewis, a rock star sales professional who's dedicated her career to helping families plan ahead with confidence. So, Macy, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me. I feel really lucky to be on here today. So thank you.
Well, I've been looking forward to this interview for some time now, and now we get a chance to talk about a day in the life of Macy Lewis. You're getting to help families on a day-to-day basis plan ahead for their funeral plans and their funeral arrangements, and we'll get into that, just what a day in the life looks like for you, if that's all right. So I guess before we get too far into this, would you mind just introducing yourself for the audience who may not know who you are?
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Macy Lewis. I have been a licensed funeral director and Preneed specialist in tandem this month for 7 years now. I started working in funeral homes when I was 16 years old, doing everything from hand washing the cars and the windows, the chandeliers, pulling weeds, just working my way up through the hierarchy of a funeral home, and then switched to Preneed full time. And I've been doing Preneed exclusively ever since then.
And doing fantastic, I might add. You're a
Thank you.
natural. And we love that. And we'll get into some of what helps you achieve those great results.
Yeah.
So let's dig into what a day in the life might look like. If you don't mind, we'll kind of hop right in. But I don't know if you remember that there was one moment that might have helped you recognize that pre-need was the way to go for you, was your calling.
Sure. So as I just previously stated, I was doing at need full time and a lot of managerial tasks, as well as pre-need, aftercare, and selling monuments for a 150 call firm in Indianapolis. So a very competitive market. And so I had a life event, unfortunately, happen to me in December of 2020. My mom passed away at the age of 50.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. And we had no plans in place, of course. So that really opened my eyes to the importance of everything we do as funeral directors, but the profound impact that a plan in place for a family can have, since my own didn't have one. So that's when I really started thinking I need to take Preneed more seriously. I can help more families. I know I can do this. I'm very passionate about alleviating stress. That's what fulfilled me so much in an at-need career. And I know what fulfills the funeral directors we help every day, right, Paul? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
they love to alleviate stress from those in their community. I love that same thing. And I saw an avenue in Preneed where I could achieve that. So in January 2023, I made that transition, and it's definitely fulfilling for me to just see the look on people's faces leaving, knowing they have that plan.
Well, and firsthand, thank you for sharing that. And firsthand exactly how important it is to have a plan, get some of these thoughts in writing, and talk about the things that are not necessarily the most pleasant and comfortable. People don't wake up every day looking to go into the funeral home to talk about end of life matters, right?
No, they don't. That's for sure.
Plus, I guess on the bright side, no one looks to buy a pre-need funeral plan at 2 a.m. in the morning. So you got that going for you.
Yeah, no. No, they don't. That's for sure. Sometimes people get curious and request the information, I think, but
Yeah.
If they're up late, thinking about it, but no, you're exactly right.
So walk us through what's a typical day look like for Macy. You're getting your week started. Describe that, what that might look for somebody who might be curious or interested in this line of work.
My day actually starts the day before. So the evening prior to my next day, I am looking at my calendar and I am texting the folks that I am going to meet with the next day and confirming that they are still coming in, what location they're coming into. If I ask them to do, I call it their homework. I got to make it fun for them, Paul. I tell them, don't forget your homework. I told you to bring, your DD 214 or a cemetery deed. Or if they say they're going to write their obituary, I say, okay, that's your homework. You need to bring it in with you. It gives them, something to be held accountable before we spend that time together. It also gives me an idea of how I can help them too, right?
Yeah, you know what else I think it does? There's a commitment bias of sorts. And once you've committed to a certain level, you want to see it through. So you've already gotten some work involved. You're committed to this. And by having some homework, you're more likely to show up for that appointment the next day.
Absolutely. 100%. It's like taking your homework to to school, right? It's the same concept. And I do feel like people think it's funny when I say it. It's not really that funny, but some people haven't done homework in 50 years. So they think that's hilarious.
I'm one of those. Let's talk about your appointments, Macy, when you're meeting with families. So how many appointments do you normally go on in a week on average?
Okay. I try to do 2 to 3 appointments a day. I
Okay.
don't like to do, now I do 4 sometimes a day. But it just depends on the needs of the people that I'm meeting with, right? And then also, where they're at in the planning process and if it's urgent. Sometimes I might be seeing somebody at 7 p.m. that is doing a Medicaid spend down. They need to get that done. So I'm, working a little bit later to accommodate that. So not every day looks the same, but I do try to have 2 minimum a day, up to 4 a day. I
Wow.
like to set aside at least 2 hours for people.
Did you say
That's
at least 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That way you can not feel rushed.
I really don't believe in the whole 1 hour thing. I didn't believe in it in Nat Need. There used to be this funeral director thing that you were just like this all-star funeral director if you could turn around a family in an hour. And I'm just like, man, would I want to be turned around in an hour?
Well, just because you're efficient doesn't mean you're effective, right?
Amen. Right.
So that's what we
Or
learned from Dr. Wolfelt.
absolutely. Or that you're giving them that sense of comfort, whether it's in pre-need or at need.
Right.
The sense of comfort doesn't disappear based on the topic that we're discussing with folks. So
So
two
where are
hours.
your most of your appointments taking place, Macy? Are you meeting families in the funeral home primarily, or
I enjoy meeting families in the funeral home, and I think families enjoy it as well. It's daunting at first. However, I would say I meet 99% of families
wow?
in the firms. I do go to homes, but not as regularly. I will accommodate that, but I focus on meeting folks in the funeral home.
Have you ever had an appointment in a strange place? I've met some sales professionals who they've closed deals at Denny's, trailer parks, any kind of a chicken coop one time, a lady from Louisiana. So I don't know if you have any stories like that for the audience.
Oh, yeah, I did one on the farm.
See?
I've done a pre-need on the farm, right in front of tractors and equipment. And yeah, that's probably the strangest place. It's normal to me, and the demographic that I work with. But for some folks listening to this podcast, they might be like, okie dokie.
Hey, you go where you got to go to take care of families, right?
It was in the middle of harvest,
Yeah.
and I knew he would keep putting me off. He
Well
didn't.
done.
Yeah, he didn't. Just bring farmers lunch, they'll be happy. So,
So let me ask you this: as far as I don't know if you're setting appointments using cold calls at all, because I know people are wondering, does she have to cold call? Would I need to cold call? What type of cold calling do you do, if any?
I don't do any cold
Yay.
calling, Paul.
I
So,
think
I
people
think
would like to hear that.
yeah, I think our company, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but our company really believes in not cold calling, which is part of the reason why my at need side was so drawn to funeral director's life. Because I just don't want to be calling people saying, "Would you like to sit down with me and plan, your demise?" without them inquiring for that information, correct?
Well, there's no
Um,
need to. There's no need to. I mean, you're
there
plenty
there
busy, it
isn't a
looks
need.
like.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't a need. So whether it's an aftercare family, that's not a cold call. It's just an extension of our service, right? And then, all of the folks on Facebook and online, gosh, that's so active. I hope we get to talk about that a little bit more because I'm passionate about it. But man, those people want the info. They want to talk about it. So there's really no need to cold call folks.
Exactly. Well, while we're on it, while you're hot, let's talk about some of those new generation type leads, those digital age leads, if you want. So, what do you like most about them, and can you describe them for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I when I wrote Preneed previously, I did work for another company that was not so forward thinking, and I didn't have such thing as a Facebook lead or an ebook or online arrangement guide. Those things that are regular in our vocabulary now, Paul. I didn't have before, and folks are using those. So. I think about myself when I get online to get a service, right? Or to show interest in a service and I fill out that form. I want that information emailed to me, right? Or texted to me. And folks want the same thing with funeral service is what I started figuring out. So as soon as I started with Funeral Director's Life and was getting these Facebook leads, whether we were presenting an ebook to the consumer or whether we were answering in response to a survey, right? I was texting them pretty much immediately and showing them my face, showing them who I was and that I wasn't spam, I was a real person. And I thought to myself, these folks are already holding their iPad or their phone and they want this information. If I do this, I might get a better response than phone call. And I did, and I have. And I think that's how our society is shifting in a way. I'm not saying that phone call doesn't still work. I do believe it does. But I also believe that there are a lot of clients that I close with that I do not talk to them one time on the phone. I see them in person, but we do not speak on the phone once.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that really happening because they love texting, and it really doesn't matter the generation because you've got millennials, Gen X, baby boomers. They're all texting all the time, and so whatever can connect you with them most efficiently and effectively, and you're building trust because the quicker that you respond, that shows you care and you're interested, and I think that's positive.
Right, right. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. I just think it's something that it could have been implemented on the at needs side earlier in my career as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, better late than never.
Yeah, big difference maker for me for sure.
I love it. All right, well, let's talk about the baby boomers a little bit, if you don't mind, because again, that's a big part of your target audience. Our average age of a new policyholder is about 74 years old for the company's benefit here. And so, how are you connecting with these folks? How are you relating? How are you building trust? Can you just demonstrate a little bit of that for us or explain it, if you will?
Sure. Yeah. I love baby boomers. So, baby boomers are interesting because they are oftentimes the first people in their family to break a generational tradition when it comes to funerals. And what I mean by that, my grandparents are prime examples. Everyone in my family has been buried traditionally, right? Casket vault, 2-day visitation the night before, funeral service the next day. And we're just not seeing that anymore. And so when connecting with a boomer, they really just want you to hear them. They want the permission to know it's okay that I'm doing something a little different. And once you have heard them and you're like, I hear you, let's get a plan down. I can help you with that. Let's tell me more about this. tell me more about this. But then also asking them permission, may I share with you a little bit more about this? So it's an exchange of active listening and then asking permission to share more of our knowledge. And that builds that trust. It just blossoms. So I really enjoy boomers. It just takes patience, permission, and active listening, Paul.
Well, you hate to overly generalize, but baby boomers have been rebellious all through the '60s and the '70s, and all the way up to they were the first to do lots of things, rock and roll music, and so they can be trendsetters in the funeral planning space as well.
Amen. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the trends that you're seeing in funeral planning. What are families talking about these days? What are they interested in? Help us understand what conversations you're having in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. Here in the Midwest, I feel like cremation, even though it's not a new concept, right? For Midwesterners, it's really something different. So that's certainly a hot topic, no pun intended, but it really is. Cremation is growing at a really rapid rate. But then also, I'm just seeing this huge surge in green burial cemeteries. People want that information. They want to know about it. They want to know how they can do it. I've pre-planned 8 couples this year so far for green burial.
Wow, that's surprising to me.
Yeah,
I would expect that maybe on on the coast, on the Pacific side or the Atlantic side, but really not so much in the Midwest.
yeah, it's really starting to take off. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to see a balance of that cremation green burial market. We're really going to see some balance there between those two, and it's not going to be just all cremation. I do believe that.
I could see that as an opportunity too, because you get a chance. Again, the sooner we meet with families, the better, because then you can start planning ahead before something happens, right? So you can talk about, if you have green burial wishes, you need to talk about those and share those and write those down and communicate those, because otherwise no one's going to know about it, unfortunately. And so when you think about these conversations that you're having, what are some of the ways that you're creating value for families?
I feel like the best way to create value is through education, which I have been told this by my greatest mentor in the industry, the owner of the previous firm that I was at when I was at Need. He said an informed consumer makes better decisions. And so
Informed consumer makes better decisions. I
makes
like it.
better decisions. And I have put that on my headstone because that's the truth, man. I think that when we take the time to educate folks, again, they are going to make those really good decisions for themselves. I actually had a couple. I hope it's okay that I tell this story because it kind of reignited my passion last week for what we do. So they had been not really shopping, but they received this ad in the mail from a cemetery conglomerate, and they were offering them a free vault if they purchased cemetery space. Okay. But they were confused on the purpose of a vault, why they needed it, what the different vaults were. And I had about, I don't know, 2 minutes total of my vault presentation just talking about why we use a vault, the vault's actual purpose, the investment behind it. And they just looked at me like, wow. And I asked them if the previous person they sat with at that cemetery had shared those things with them, and they said no. But before I started sharing, I asked them permission if I could take them to the vault display so that they could touch it and feel it. And I asked them if I could share the purpose of the vault with them. And I included them, what happens to concrete when it gets wet? Asking them questions and getting that participation, that exchange that I was talking about. That's where we get the trust that just blossoms in these relationships.
Well, and all the while you're building value, right? Because again, you're educating them, informing them, enlightening them, and they're, oh, I didn't realize that that was part of that. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. They had buried both their parents and then they were shopping for themselves. And they said, we've never had a funeral director explain that to us before.
When most people haven't. How many funerals do families plan in their lifetime?
Oh, I should know this, but I want to
I'm going to say, I
say
mean, it's going to be one or two
one or
max.
two is what I
Yeah.
usually say. I mean, if you do beyond that, that's quite a bit, unfortunately, but typically one or two. Yeah.
But the point is, they're not going to be very good at it. So they don't know these things, and there's confusion, and there's misinformation and disinformation. So your role as the guide here to help them, navigate this confusing space, which can
Right.
be confusing. So
Right.
good
And
job.
yeah, I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. But that's a win for me, because they came in shopping and they wrote their policies that day.
Wow.
Um, and they told me, we're shopping, Macy. We're like, we're not committed. And it's
So
just,
how'd you handle that when they say you're shopping?
I never say anything. If anything, I say, oh, good. I'm glad you are. I'm glad you're shopping. You should.
Do your homework.
You should. I don't really feed into it like, oh, well, you shouldn't shop and don't go there and don't do this and don't tell people don't, especially this generation that we're helping. Whether you are pre-need or at need, don't rush in with don't, no, you can't, none of that, because most of the time it's not true. And it's gonna scare them away. They don't trust you immediately because
Well,
you're
and
not.
people like the freedom to choose. And they want, like you
Absolutely.
said, they want to make an informed decision. When you help them in that process, then you're going to win them over through your trust, your collaboration, and ultimately through the results that you help them to gain. So that's good.
Absolutely, Paul.
Fantastic. So let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about technology. And,
Sure.
here we are in the 21st century, and technology is just something we can't avoid. So, how are you using technology with families in your week, and what does that look like?
With my previous pre-need company, if I met 4 couples in a day, that was 8 contracts I was hand writing.
Yeah, carpal tunnel city.
It wasn't, and I was younger.
Yep.
But it wasn't fun, Paul. And I started with Funeral Director's Life, and we've got this awesome thing called Digicon, and that really has changed my life and my funeral homes that I serve, their lives, and ultimately the consumer's life. Um, Online arrangement guide, man, if I could get more people in the Midwest to use it, which I think we're trending toward that. Yeah, I've had a 95-year-old get on and use it herself. And then I had a gentleman last week in his 80s get on for his 105-year-old mother and use it. And then I also had a lady last week use it who is 49. So that just gives you an age range of the folks 49 to 80s is using an online arrangement guide. Wow. Wow. And those are all closes, okay? These aren't just people who are looking around. These are people who are now Funeral Directors Life clients. And so I just think that those tools are going to become more prevalent. Of course, as a pre-planning specialist following up, folks might not be ready today, but they might be ready next week, right? Or next month. So having, our pipeline readily available and all the amazing tools, the email, tool, I love that. And being able to have the app on my phone to copy and paste those text messages we were talking about, it keeps me organized. And so I think that, between Digigon, Online Arrangement Guide, and Pipeline, technology is definitely here to stay in funeral service.
Here, here. Yeah, we're seeing that more and more, and that's a competitive advantage and helps you to do your job more efficiently and effectively, which is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit to the funeral home and thinking about the role of active sales in a funeral home, and if you can maybe help it give some advice on the relationship between the pre-need sales team and the at-need team, and what can help make that more harmonious or synergistic, if you will?
Sure. Yeah, I love talking about this, and you're bringing it up at a great time because yesterday was my first day at a brand new firm, right?
Okay.
That hasn't had a pre-need program in place. They also haven't had any active marketing in place besides radio ads.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
like opportunity to me, Macy.
So I got a real great opportunity. I should have brought it over here. I'm staring at them right now, but our company offers these great things in the online resource store called appointment cards. I showed them, this is if you can't text it to me and writing it down's easier, this is the type of information I'm looking for. I will call anybody and everybody, walk in, call in, and then just working as a team. You have to reiterate that pre-need is not a one person show. Okay, pre-need is on all the time, just like at need.
Yeah, it's kind of like a team sport almost, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. And I used to think it was so cliche when someone would say that, but it is true. And for example, you've got someone answering the phones, you've got someone working the door, you've got someone doing monuments, you've got all these different elements, and those actually can work really well together to score big if everyone's on the same page. So, I'm sitting with a pre-need, they don't have a monument. I'm going to go tell the monument salesperson that, not because, oh, we want everybody's money. No, we want to keep all that service in-house the best we can so that family is served to the best, most respected possible way as they're in our
Sure, there's
care.
value in convenience too. Why make the family go to another stop and have another appointment? So they would
Right.
value and appreciate. That's a pro tip right there from Macy. Just, give a referral to help somebody out, and you might get one at some point in the future.
Yeah. So, I started, off kind of making this agreement yesterday with the gal that handles the monuments. And I said, if they don't have one, I'll be telling them they will get a call from you. I'm very passionate about that because of my experience. Not only did I not have pre-planning in place for my mom, but there was no monument. And that was really difficult for me. And so I see extreme value in that. And so do the families that I've helped pre-need a monument in the past. So it's just about making sure that the relationships are there. But we have to talk about leadership, right? Because it starts there and they have to believe in it. Okay. They have to know that this is a team effort all the way through pre-need, at need, all of that. And they have to really enforce it. I've been in environments where ownership, maybe they want to do pre-need. It's a great idea, right? We love ideas, but we're not willing to do the things and enforce the steps to make it truly successful. So I do think that leadership does have a key in what we do as a team.
And part of that leadership might come down to communication. I don't know
Oh, yeah.
how you're communicating with the at need team. Is this a regular, like a Monday morning debrief, or do you have a group text? I mean, how do you communicate with the at need team?
A group text. So yesterday they don't do it already. So yesterday with this new firm, I'm just like, hey, why don't, instead of texting, me texting, I'm going to make up names, Susan and Bob, how about I put us all in a group text, and then that way, this is my at need brain that I can never turn off. I can know if we got calls the night before, right? We can all know if we got calls the night before. We can all know if, somebody's sick, what we're doing that day, where we're going to be, if anything's kind of changed, and then sharing a calendar is huge digitally. I mean, it just helps that communication flourish. So if you start those things right off the bat, and just get into the habit, it's habitual, right? Once you get into those habits and you build that trust and that communication, again, things are going to flourish. You will be successful.
That's a really good idea. I'm glad you're doing that. So let's talk about more the challenging part of being, because I don't want to make sure that we paint a a rosy picture here, because I know it's not an easy job. So what's would you say is the most challenging or the most difficult part of your job as a sales professional?
I think the most challenging or difficult for me, and I think I have grown in this aspect, but just meeting with someone maybe to initially give them that information and they're really not ready to go forward, but you've set up that second opportunity with them so that they can finish their plan for their family. And they're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, and I try to overcome an objection, and I get hung up on or something like that.
Yeah, no
That's
one likes to get hung up on, for sure.
no, and especially after I've already spent time with them,
Hmm.
I love everybody pretty much. I mean, I don't know a stranger. I make friends with everyone. So, it does, I do take it a little personal, I guess, which I probably shouldn't, but I have to remember the words of my manager, Josh Kaler, some will, some won't, who cares, move on.
Yeah.
You're
Shout out
letting,
to Josh Kaler, right? Shout out to
yeah,
Josh.
he's an amazing manager. And so when he said that to me, I think I called him and I was like boo-hooing like my first 2 weeks. And he's like, you're better than that. And also, you're letting somebody else slip through the cracks on you, that needs your help, wants your knowledge, because you're upset that this guy has changed his mind. And it's funny because some of those people that changed their mind, like when I first started 2 years ago, they've called me this year. Like some of those people, it does come full circle sometimes, but it is difficult in the moment. Just getting hung up on in general after someone's requested the information. I just don't like getting hung up on.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen too terribly often.
No, no. And just, I mean, I
It
don't
could be their
know.
loss is the way I'd look at it, because
Yeah.
you're going, however they, if they buy or if they don't buy, it's not a waste of their time to meet with you, because you're pleasant to meet with. You're there to help them. Hopefully it'll be an enjoyable experience. But if they choose not to engage, then maybe later. I think that's good advice from Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be rough out there on the road, or in the field by yourself.
Yeah, just lonely.
Yeah, and just sometimes you just don't feel like the funeral home staff resonates with you. Your
Hmm.
teammates might be far away, your supports might be far away. And so, having managers and leadership within funeral director's life, I think really has been a game changer for me to keep me motivated and to lessen that burnout. So I encourage it I know burnout's been a big topic. I just overcame the burnout mark.
All
Um,
right. Well done. Congrats. That's a
yeah,
milestone.
thank you. Yes, I graduated mortuary school 8 years ago, and the burnout time in the state of Indiana is 7 years from mortuary school graduation
Wow.
to, when they leave the profession. And I can attribute it to the leadership and the folks I've surrounded myself with. So I think that's a big key for the funeral homes that we support too, Paul.
Yeah, it is. Really is. All right. Well, good stuff. Well, let's talk about some advice that you might be giving to funeral home owners here, that, if they want to have a successful and active program, because not every funeral home is supportive of preneed. Let's just face it. So what advice would you give to these particular group of folks?
I really love this topic because I've been told before that women can't do pre-need, or they don't make good funeral directors or pre-need specialists. And then been told also pre-need's not necessary in my funeral home, which is great. I hope they secure 100% of the call volume in their in their market demographic there. But not likely with that attitude, especially in this day and age. So, the folks that called you for the last 100 years and let you handle their family, they no longer have a loyalty to you. They don't. Especially if you can't keep up with the competitor down the street in terms of services and just options in general. And that goes in tandem with pre-need. That is pre-need. When someone comes in your building for a visitation, that is pre-need. That is marketing. That is, you are showing your facility to the community, and the consumer is immediately hit with a scent or a visual, right? And they're deciding this place isn't for me. There's a candy bar wrapper and cigarette butts all over the sidewalk, right? That is pre-need, Paul. I don't care what anybody says. That's pre-need, because I've had people in other firms that I've worked in say that they saw something like that and they're not doing their pre-need with us, right? That was a long, long time ago in my career. I've grown since then. But I just wish funeral home owners would realize, if they think pre-need is not necessary, your competitor probably does. And in 10 years, I really hope you're in business. I know that probably sounds frank, but if you're not capturing these folks who have no sense of loyalty to any firm, they're gonna go to someone who does have that sense of urgency, right? Who wants to create that experience
Yeah,
for the
that's
consumer.
so true. And then the tendency is to think of bricks and mortar competition as the only competition, but in this day and age, it's simply not true. You've got
Oh,
internet
don't think so.
competitors, you've got
Yeah.
churches that compete, cemeteries, out of town. I mean, there's lots of competitors that you may not realize are competitors.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about this because the internet stuff is, whoa, wow.
Yeah.
It's exploded and it's so real. And if you're not on that train, you're about almost 10 years behind, right?
Well, sure. And you can't sweep back the ocean. I mean, the waves of change are coming, so you might as well embrace some of that and make the most of it. And that'd be the advice that I'd give a funeral home. And just knowing that somebody like yourself that is in the market full time every day, you're helping families and you're helping spread the funeral home's good name and reputation in the marketplace. And families need help. That's been established already. So whether they want to save money or they just want to understand the options, or that, like you mentioned, Medicaid planning, whatever the case may be, without your presence or someone like you there's a huge void.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Just a pre-need specialist and a pre-need program in general. There is a void, because now more than ever, people are wanting this information. Now more than ever, people are wanting to pre-plan. Because why? Because their parents didn't. Because their parents didn't believe in it. And so there's this whole generation coming in. So yeah, having that person there like myself, or just a pre-need program in general, is what is going to take you to the next level in terms of funeral home ownership. It really is. And I'm not just saying that because I love pre-need, or we're more than a pre-need company, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, good deal. Well, let's turn to our wrap up time here, because I think we're kind of covering most of what we wanted to cover in our time together today, and it's been great. But I know you might want to share some advice for our listening audience. So if you could share one piece of advice with funeral professionals about pre-need and serving families better, what would that be?
Be more open to your consumer. In funeral service, we get so tunnel vision like. And I'm guilty of it, right? So I've always made this promise to myself to never stop learning. And I think that goes in tandem with pre-need as well. And just, you never want to stop learning how you can be better for your consumer. And you never want to stop learning your consumer, because the consumer that comes in the door, whether it's pre-need or at need, every day, you've never had a consumer like them before. And so just be committed to change. Be committed to being uncomfortable. Be committed to trying something new. I think those pieces of advice are what has allowed me to be successful in certain arenas of my career. And I wish that for other people too. And when I see people who I maybe don't think that they're up to their full potential, the one barrier I see is they're not committed to that part, Paul. They don't want to budge on learning the person in front of them or learning something new that they can implement in their business to really take it to that next level.
That's so good. Great advice, Macy. We're grateful for you and so thankful for all your hard work in this profession. You do such good work. Keep it up.
Thank
And
you.
your insights are going to help so many funeral homes take their pre-need programs to the next level. So thank you so very much. Thank you to our listeners for joining us today. If you found this conversation helpful, be sure to subscribe for more practical strategies on growing your funeral business. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Macy, have a great one.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.